Everyone agrees that tefillin are not worn on Shabbat and full Yom Tov because tefillin are called an ot, a sign, and those holy days are themselves an ot, are a sign. The real question is whether Chol HaMoed also has that standing. The issue is not merely practical. It asks what kind of day Chol HaMoed really is. From some statistical research, you can see that it's not just a theoretical question. If almost 90% of observant Jews do not wear tefillin on Chol HaMoed, I will be attaching an appendix with more detailed statistics that show this down below the video. This video will explain the halachic and Talmudic roots of how so much of Orthodox practice came to develop in that direction. In Menachos, we have a basic rule associated with Rabbi Akiva. Tefillin are worn on days that need a sign, and they are not worn on days that are themselves a sign. That principle is clear. What is less clear is whether Chol HaMoed belongs fully in the same category as Shabbat and Yom Tov, or whether it remains close enough to weekday life for tefillin to continue. In Moed Katan, Rabbi Yehuda says that he allows a person to write tefillin for himself on Chol HaMoed. Some Rishonim treat that as a suggestive evidence that tefillin are relevant on Chol HaMoed, because why would one write them if there was no use for them? A practical way to respond to that argument is someone who wants to put on tefillin immediately after the festival, especially at the earliest possible morning time, would need them ready beforehand. On that reading, preparing tefillin during Chol HaMoed could be understood as preparation for the first morning after the Chag. That does not prove the issue by itself, but it gives the Mishnah a more practical logic and helps explain why the passage became part of the debate. The Yerushalmi was read by several Rishonim as stronger support for wearing tefillin and Chol HaMoed. The Rosh develops that side of the argument. Other Rishonim move in the other direction and argue that Chol HaMoed itself bears the signs of covenantal sanctity, such as the prohibition of chametz on Pesach Chol HaMoed and the mitzvah of sukkah on Sukkot Chol HaMoed. On that reading, Chol HaMoed itself is already enough of a sign, and tefillin are therefore not worn. The split becomes concrete in Shulchan Aruch and Rima. The Shulchan Aruch in Orach Chaim rules that one does not wear tefillin on Chol HaMoed because Chol HaMoed is also an ot. The Rima records the Ashkenazic custom of wearing tefillin while noting the sensitivity around the bracha. That is why the practical map of Minchagim later divides so sharply between communities. The halachic debate turns on one central question: is Chol HaMoed merely an in-between day, or is it already a covenantal sign strong enough to displace tefillin? The Bavli gives the principle, Moed Katan and the Yerushalmi sharpen the evidence. The Rishonim divide over how to read those sources, and the Shulchan Aruch and Rima preserves that divide in practice. The next video will turn from the halachic mechanics of obligation and exemption to the mystical approach and ask how the Zohar and the Arizal reframe the entire issue.